Good morning. My name is Jessica Hubbard, and I'm the Executive Director of the Yolo Community Foundation. This is an information session for organizations that are interested in applying for the Davis Arts and Culture Grant this fall 2022. Today, we'll go over the grant background, eligibility, the size of the grants, a brief overview of the application process, tips for a great application, and if this were live, we'd be doing Q&A. Instead, I'll share a little bit about our upcoming office hours where you can ask questions. First of all, this grant is the result of a major donation from the City of Davis as part of their America's Rescue Plan grant making. It was initiated as a result of an application made to the City of Davis by the Davis Arts Alliance, and the Yolo Community Foundation will be serving as the administrator of the grant. So the city has donated money to YCF, and now YCF will be making grants to arts and culture organizations that serve the City of Davis. Eligible organizations have to meet 4 criteria. First of all, they should be either a 501c3, public charity or private operating foundation, or else be fiscally sponsored by such an organization. So if you're not a 501c3, but your fiscal sponsor is, you have a formal fiscal sponsor relationship, then you're also eligible. Second, this grant is intended to serve the City of Davis. The funding comes from City of Davis ARP money, and so applicants must be able to demonstrate that they spend at least half their funding to serve City of Davis residents. If you're a performing arts organization, you might say that, look, 50% of our audience is from Davis or 50% of our performers. If you're a gallery, it could be that you're located in Davis and at least 50% of your audience is from that city. If you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to me, jessica.hubbard@yolocf.org, and happy to talk through that with you. Secondly, applicants must spend more than 50% of their expenses on arts and culture. And in both cases, for the location and for this criteria, that's not just programming. If 50% of your audience is from Davis, then 50% of your executive director's time also counts. So it's not just the programming expenses, but also the business and organizational expenses required to be able to carry out your work. The definition of what we're considering arts and culture is on the grant website. Everywhere I share this video, I will also share a link to the grant website. Applicants finally must also be able to demonstrate that they suffered a negative financial impact due to the pandemic. I think that is easy to demonstrate for the vast majority of arts organizations, but if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. Grants are being allocated across 3 tiers. In the first tier are organizations that have a facility where they deliver programming. Whether that's gallery space, performing arts space, rehearsal space, not storage, not office space, but a facility that they use for the purposes of delivering programming. Organizations in that category are eligible for grants in the $30,000 to $40,000 range. Excuse me. So organizations, these grant ranges are estimates. This is what we anticipate, but they could change a bit based on the number and strength of applications in each tier. Organizations and facilities are at this level because for many organizations during the full shutdowns were able to hit pause on their operations, and really their revenues had dropped dramatically, but they were able to slow their expenses significantly as well. And we saw that organizations with facilities were least able to do that since they had ongoing expenses associated with their buildings. Second tier is organizations with paid staff, but without facilities. Staff for this purpose is paid employees that are W-2 employees and that are year-round. So part-time is okay, but this is not you hired an accompanist for a performance or you hired actors for a show, but instead people that are employed by you doing the work of the organization year-round. And then the third category is organizations with no staff and no facility. So in that case, those organizations tended to be the most able to hit pause, but now need funding to start back up. So for organizations with staff and no facilities, the anticipated grant range is $10,000 to $20,000, whereas for volunteer-run organizations with no facility, the anticipated range is $5,000 to $10,000. Organizations may receive partial funding based both on the strength of their application and the size of their organization. And grants will typically not be more than 50% of a recipient's annual expenses. We're planning on using 2019 since we know so many organizations shrank during the pandemic. So not more than half of 2019 expenses. But if you in fact had higher expenses in 2021, we're happy to look there instead. These are intended as general operating support or unrestricted donations. That said, we do have to meet a few ARP requirements. So the funding must be spent by December 2024. I don't anticipate that being a problem for most of you. It must be spent in such a way that, of course, meets your mission, serves Davis residents, and addresses the negative economic impact that the pandemic had on your organization. So there will be a report at the end where you're required to indicate how you spent the money. You have a lot of flexibility in doing so. That's the unrestricted nature of the grant, but it does have to meet those basic criteria. The grant application, where I post this video, I will include a link to the application as noted. It is a little bit longer than I typically prefer for our applications. The reason for that is that general operating support requires a bit more diligence. It's easy to say this program is eligible. It's a little more complicated to ensure that this organization is eligible, and the application reflects that, but it's still as streamlined as we could possibly make it. So I hope that it is not onerous, doesn't take more than a couple of hours to fill out at the most. You'll see that the character count is somewhat high. That's not because we want you to write a book. We want you to be as streamlined as is reasonable. You don't feel like you have to fill the space. We just also didn't want you to have to spend an hour trying to turn all your long words into short words or edit down your answers. So we tried to give you enough space that you didn't have to worry about it, but also not so much that you felt like you had to fill it. Three primary criteria, three total criteria for this application are, when we review the applications, this is what we'll be looking for. First, that you demonstrate the impact of the pandemic on your organization and show that you had a negative financial impact, a negative overall impact on the organization. Secondly, we want to see how significant your organization's impact has been on the Davis community to date. This is by far the most important piece. We're looking to understand how many community members you serve or how broad your impact is, how significant your impact is on those participants or how deep your impact is. We know those two things are at odds, right? Most people are serving either a lot of people, but fairly shallowly, or fewer people, but very transformatively, and not so much both. And that's fine. And then third, has the organization's programming been broadly accessible to community members? So we know that for the most part, arts organizations do have to charge their participants. That's fine. We totally understand that. And also we know that that can result in a situation where only high income community members have access. So we want to understand how you've grappled with that to make your programming as accessible as possible to the community at large. For organizations that have a facility, that may include the extent to which you've utilized your facility to serve the Davis community, the Davis arts community specifically. And then finally, the third bucket is how likely is it that the organization will continue to have a positive impact on the Davis community in the future, assuming you're funded. What we're really trying to look at there is, if we write a check, will you still go out of business a week later? Obviously, we don't think and certainly hope that none of the organizations are in that position, but we will look at that just to make sure that the money is very likely to be able to be used to serve the community. Just briefly, a few tips on effective applications. I want to focus in on, first of all, I think there's a significant tendency for nonprofits writing a grant to be amazing at defining the problem they're trying to solve and amazing at defining their impact. And it's often a little bit of a black box to outsiders at how they get from that problem to that solution. So make sure that you actually say what it is that you do as an organization. What goes on behind closed doors or, in your facility or whatever the case may be. And I would encourage you in particular to have someone who's not deeply familiar with your program read the application to make sure that they're able to understand it, since they don't have the context that you have and we won't either. To that end, also, it can be that external review can be really helpful to ensure that you're staying away from jargon and acronyms that might not be widely understood. I'd encourage you to give yourself a little bit of time, fill out the application sooner than later so you can let it marinate and think about it before you hit submit, and be as sort of clear and concise as possible for your benefit and for ours. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. Copy and paste freely from other grant applications, from your website, your marketing materials, whatever makes sense. And definitely reach out to me if you have questions. We do have 3 office hours coming up on October 3rd, October 6th, and October 11th, where I post this video, I will post a link to sign up for those office hours, or reach out to me, jessica.hubbard@yolocf.org. Thank you so much.